And now, we come to the end of the third Global Mayoral Forum. To formally close the forum, may we likewise invite on stage Ms. Irena Vojakova Solorano of UNDP Serbia, Mr. Raul Imbak, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of Switzerland, and Mr. Alvin Cunha, City Administrator of Quezon City.
Now we'll proceed with the closing ceremony, and our first speaker is Ms. Irena Vojakova Solorano.
Thank you so much. I am here on behalf of the United Nations Resident Coordinator and UNDP Resident Representative to the Philippines, Ola Almgren, who unfortunately cannot attend because he has to be part of important signing ceremony that is happening as we speak. Your Excellencies, honorable mayors, governors, prefects, and local officials, colleagues from the international community, partners from governments, academia, civil society, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. It is nearly evening already. It is my pleasure and privilege to speak to you on the closing of the third Global Mayoral Forum on Mobility, Migration, and Development. Congratulations to you all for the success of the forum, to the organizers for their work and dedication, to the resource persons and facilitators for their inputs and guidance, to the Quezon City government for its initiative and steadfast commitment, and to the participants for the dynamic and very productive discussion. The Mayoral Forum comes at the most appropriate and opportune time, when the global migration dialogue and cooperation is at the height of change and revolutionizing standards and policies, with the arrival of and adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals last year, the New York Declaration on Refugees and Migrants 2 weeks ago, the IOM joining the United Nations, and UNDP signing a cooperation pact with IOM. And of course, the upcoming new urban agenda in October. There are a lot of things happening on migration nowadays, when regions and countries are facing multiple changes in migration patterns and profiles, and when local leaders and actors are placed at the forefront in implementing migration policy, which is sometimes rather blurred, but at the same time to promote development and securing protection of migrants. Half of humanity, 3.5 billion people, live in cities today. By 2030, almost 60% of the world's population will live in urban areas. At least 95% of urban expansion in the next decades will take place in transition economies. All this is brought about by movement of people, internally, internationally, and back and forth, by choice or by necessity, with its costs and benefits, both for the host and the home country and community, both for the integration and reintegration of the migrants and their families. In the context of the ongoing refugee crisis, where cities are acting in various parts of the world as frontline responders, combined with global tendencies towards increased urbanization connected to internal migration. Attention is growing towards the role of cities, de facto or de jure, in attending to the needs of newcomers. For me, what is essential and critical is how to provide targeted services delivery to facilitate the integration and reintegration, where migration is too often politicized, framed as a burden on local communities. I believe that there is now an ongoing process and approach towards integration and reintegration, where both processes are no longer seen as the end of migration processes, but as a means to an end, with the final objective being the personal development. This is entirely in line with the SDGs, whereby Target 7, Goal 10, calls for the facilitation of orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through the implementation of planned and well-managed migration policies. I echo the congratulatory message of the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon that he had on September 19th, just a few days ago, when he said, "Today's summit represents a breakthrough on our collective efforts to address the challenges of human mobility." It is a simple sentence, but it is very important because it was never said before in that hall. By adopting the New York Declaration, the UN member states are making bold commitments, including to start negotiations leading to an international conference and the adoption of a global compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration in 2018, to develop guidelines on the treatment of migrants in vulnerable situations, to achieve a more equitable sharing of the burden and responsibility for hosting and supporting the world's refugees by adopting the Global Compact on Refugees. As such, I am pleased to note that one of the outputs of this forum is the localization of the guide in responding to the situation, vulnerabilities and opportunities for migrants in countries and communities, or also through the MIKI. My gratitude goes to Quezon City and to Legazpi City and the ASEAN participating local leaders for leading the informal working group. While the ASEAN region is not inundated with numbers of refugees, the region is a place struck with calamities on a regular basis, be it natural, health, or internal conflicts, that result in movement of people by force. And early preparation on the ground will help reduce the risk and prepare the contingencies, ultimately contributing to managing the migration processes. With guiding principles such as the do no harm and leave no one behind, the diaspora or the migrant, their families and their communities and organizations should always be at the center of the migration and development nexus, with local actors at the front in complementing national policies and influencing them. The process, for the first time at this presence, the Mayoral Forum has the civil society included and migrant groups. We congratulate to this achievement. It is a statement to their critical role and involvement in the process, and that they cannot be left behind in the planning, discussion, and further action in upcoming mayoral fora. The many witnesses that we have heard and stories, especially here from the Philippines, I think speak for itself. A lot has been achieved in many municipalities in only a few years through the involvement of this project. And we hope that the spirit of the project will live on, and that all you mayors who are involved in the activities in creating fora for migrants in your municipalities will spread the message so that more municipalities will join and see the benefits of being inclusive. I think your messages speak for themselves. In closing, and as we usher to the fourth mayoral forum, I call on everyone's commitment and dynamism to this process. Let us continue putting migrants and their families at the center of our development initiatives. Let us continue supporting the local governments, be it in the form of capacity building, networks, and technical or financial assistance, so that they are in the front and forefront of service delivery. Let us continue advocating to national governments and international organizations to provide for the local actors' needs and strength so that they have the right competencies at the right time. Localities, cities, provinces, municipalities are hubs for ideas, commerce, culture, science, productivity, social development, migration, and much more. At their best, local actors have enabled people to advance socially and economically. The challenges they face can be overcome in ways that allow them to continue to thrive and grow, while improving resources use and reducing pollution and poverty. The list is endless what you have to do, but you have all shown that by including migration and by including migrants, you can actually do better. Again, I would like to thank you for actively participating, and would like to thank especially the Swiss government for supporting this initiative. I would like to thank IOM, NOMAD, and the World Bank for actively contributing, and I'm proud that UNDP was strongly associated with this process. I wish you very good deliberations. Thank you so much.
And now Mr. Raul, Deputy Head of Mission Embassy, Switzerland.
Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable Mayor Bautista, Excellencies, distinguished representative of international organization, ladies and gentlemen, Maganda Gabi, as we say here in the Philippines. Migrants have shaped cities and urban identities for centuries. Yet, cities have never been more in the center of attention when it comes to migrant and refugees than today. They are thought by desperate people fleeing from political persecution, armed conflicts, human rights violation, violent extremism, natural disaster, effect of state fragility, or systemic poverty. Widespread public opinion sees this person as an overwhelming source of instability for cities. Cities have also become the tragic site of hostile attacks that are sweepingly and dangerously so associated with migration in public discourses. It is alarming that in public opinion, migrants and refugees are seen as a burden to cities or even a public threat, giving rise to xenophobia, sentiment, populist attitude, and other of likes. In this way, cities become deceptive symbols of failed social inclusion. However, there is another side of this story. Looking at the past 2 days, I am reassured that the story reads more as follows. In the face of current humanitarian disaster and unbearable human suffering, cities are the forefront of providing safety, protection, and eventually a new livelihood to forcibly displaced people. Cities are also the welcoming host of honest people earning a living as tax-paying laborers, migrants, or innovative diaspora entrepreneurs rendering valuable contribution to economies and societies. In the past 2 days, we have heard testimonies from around the world on initiative and the resolve major and municipal authorities have shown in turning migration into win-win situation for the city and embracing diversity despite a number of challenges. The stories of your cities are evidence of the positive synergy between migration and development that have been acknowledged at the highest global level in 2015 when the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was adopted at the United Nations. Inadequate policies and lacking resources are the main obstacles. We have also heard from the city's presence that it is not challenges relating to the infrastructure, housing, the labor market, the welfare system, the natural environment, or social cohesion that burdens the most. It is rather insufficient competencies and resources at municipal level, inadequate national policies, and consequently malfunctioning migration governance at international level that weigh down the ability of cities to act. This underscores the urgency of yet another commitment declared by state leaders with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the importance of ensuring safe, orderly, and regular migration through planned and well-managed migration policies. In time of both unprecedented urbanization and movement of people on a global scale, it is time for national governments and the international community to recognize the underexposed yet critical role of cities in shaping migration policies and promoting inclusion. But it must go beyond mere recognition. Migration governance frameworks, both at international and national levels, need to take the role of cities into account. And consequently, cities need to be equipped with adequate competencies and resources to address migration issues at the local level, from providing protection to fostering self-relevant livelihood. Now is the perfect time for cities to engage. This third edition of the Mayoral Forum comes at a very important juncture, as both migration and urbanization are at the top of the global agenda, and two themes discussed at this year's Mayoral Forum, promoting development and securing protection, are most pertinent in light of current global dynamics. A little more than a week ago, heads of states and ministers gathered in New York for the UN Summit for Refugees and Migrants. Discussions on the urgency of a new global solutions to challenges posed by large movements of refugees and migrants also acknowledged the critical role of local authorities in hosting displaced persons and migrants. Following this summit, two global compacts with new solutions, one on migrants and one on refugees, will be elaborated. It will be indispensable to identify tangible, measurable measures for cities in this process. In 2 weeks' time, from October 17 to 20th, Habitat 3, the third United Nations Conference on Housing and Sustainable Urban Development, takes place in Quito, Ecuador. At ADPEP 3, new international commitments for sustainable urban agenda includes an explicit commitment on migrants, displaced persons, and refugees in cities. It acknowledges the challenges faced by host communities, yet also emphasizes that migrants shape urban life and contribute to development. It moves to support local authorities in establishing frameworks that enable the positive contribution of migrants to cities and strengthen urban-rural linkage. Cities and their partners should strategically use these open doors. This new set of commitment emerging from the UN can be used by local authorities and their partners as important entry points into the global policy dialogue and implementation frameworks. The Mayoral Forum is the welcome initiative that provides urgently needed global space for mayor, municipal leadership to share experiences, showcase best practices, just like you did in those 2 days, shape concrete recommendation, and launch joint initiative for city-to-city cooperation to foster win-win outcomes for cities, their community, and the migrants they are hosting. Such dialogue spaces for municipal leaders are equally important as amplifiers of the voice of cities opposite global migration policy forums of national governments. Governments like mine, and especially the international partners involved in the Mayoral Forum, should act as gatekeeper for cities to enter and feed into international policy processes, such as the annual Global Forum on Migration and Development. Local action and leadership can make a real change. The Sustainable Development Goals, the Global Compact on Migrations and Refugees, as well as the new Urban Agenda represents significant progress on the relevance of migration and cities for sustainable development. But these commitments are first and foremost a call for action. Tangible results on the ground cannot be achieved without involving local authorities in implementation frameworks and without local reality informing the new governance standards at national, regional, and global levels. This is why Switzerland encourages cities to take leadership and become champions for standard setting and implementation of these global commitments at local levels. In the vein, the second edition of the Mayoral Forum in Quito endorsed the local agenda on migration and development. That translates the SDGs into specific action areas at local level. At this third edition of the Mayoral Forum, a process to elaborate a set of guidelines for local authorities to protect and support migrants in emergency situations will be launched for the ASEAN region. This initiative intends to translate the multilateral migrant in country in crisis, the MICIC initiative into practicable measure. The initiative can also inspire by formerly Swiss and Norwegian co-lead Nansen initiative and its outcome, the agenda for the protection of cross-border displaced persons in the context of natural disaster and climate change. In closing, I would like to sincerely thank Quezon City and Mayor Bautista for hosting the third Global Mayor Forum on Human Mobility, Migration and Development. Quezon City and the Greater Manila are an excellent example of an urban area that thrives, not least thanks to its diverse inhabitants that shape in unique character. And on a personal note, I would like to thank all the participants. I had the chance to meet some of you on Wednesday when we did some work, some real hand-on work, and I could really see a lot of dynamics there. So I think you've learned a lot, you exchanged a lot. So best of luck to you going back home. And as we said, try to spread the word, try to serve as the multiplier so that this will become common practice. Thank you very much. Salamat po.
you very much, Mr. Imra. And now to Jill Helge, please.
Thank you very much. Well, I would like to add my thanks. Certainly, there's no question in this room that migration is an extremely important topic, or that there is an urgency to finding solutions, both short-term and longer-term. And that means that we need to use all the good ideas and all the right actors at all different levels to come to those forms of solution. And I think we've heard a lot of very, very good examples and had a lot of excellent exchanges here over these 2 days. I'm very excited by the commitment to work in the informal working group on the MICIC local guidelines. I think that will be a very interesting exercise that will have practical results at local level, and I look forward to the outcome of that. So I would like to thank all the partners. As someone said, there is a huge amount of work that goes into arranging a meeting like this, and certainly the last few weeks have been very intense to try and make sure that people can get here and there is the right material and the right people and the good things to discuss in the right atmosphere. Which leads me also to say thank you very much to Quezon City for the very warm and hospitable welcome that we have all enjoyed here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. So I am the penultimate speaker. I will be short and say a few thank yous and a few points on next steps, what we can expect next, and then I will pass the floor to our final speaker, Mr. Cunha, administrator from the city, from Quezon City. So first, to the thank yous. When Mayor Bautista committed to hosting this forum, this third mayoral forum last year at the Quito Forum, he did so through another mayor, a colleague who was representing him, the mayor of Naga City. And the announcement was made also with Secretary Nicolas, former Secretary Nicolas. And I must say that since that announcement in Quito in November of 2015, there has been absolutely an unwielding leadership and kind of a vision and a commitment that we really would not have been able to assemble as we have without the leadership from Quezon City and the incredible support also from the team at CFO led by Ms. Gallias, Regina Gallias. So thank you so much. Once more, I can just emphasize them after clapping. And the team, you know who you are, so I won't start the list here. You've all been really incredible. I also want to thank my own colleague, Katu van Roekhoven, who has been working with me on the forum since before the forum, since 2011, 2012, and has been with us at every single forum since then. So thank you, Katu, for all your hard work and support. Our partners, IOM, JMDI, the Asian Development Bank, and the World Bank, as you mentioned, our colleague Sonia Plaza, she really, it has been also a supporter since the very beginning. Iona Pop from IOM, also incredible to the team this year of 2015 into 16. Thank you also to Iona and to Sonia, who are not here. The government of Switzerland has been supporting and has been really, in terms of a government supporting cities, really, we thank the SDC for its leadership in supporting the work of the forum since 2013. And finally, in terms of thank you to all of you who have come from near, and especially those of you who have come from far. It's a long trip for a short amount of time. It demands a physical investment on your part, intellectual investment on your part, and I think the discussions have been incredibly rich. We hope to capture those discussions and to take forward many of the ideas and the initiatives that we've discussed. So thank you to all of you around the room for being here with us and for sharing your ideas and your commitment to the vision of progressive leadership on these issues. And now on to next steps. The first next step is that there will be a report on the proceedings of the third mayoral forum, which will be shared with you in short order. Second next step is that we will communicate the final version of the Quezon City commitment to action, the outcome document resulting from the third mayoral forum, to a number of important intergovernmental discussions and summits that we've been presenting over the last days, namely the Quito Habitat 3 conference next month, and also the Dhaka Global Forum on Migration and Development that will take place in December. We will reach out, we will reach out to those who have indicated an interest in the informal working group officially launched during this third mayoral forum. And we will communicate more information on some of the projects and initiatives that were presented here in the panel that preceded this one, but also some of the others that may emerge after the conclusion here today. And finally, a fourth next step is that we are in discussions regarding the host for the fourth mayoral forum. This information will also be communicated with you shortly, and we certainly hope to see you again in 2017 at the fourth mayoral forum. We will not give any indications right now of where that may be, but you will learn soon enough where it will take place. And again, there's a warm welcome to all of you to participate again next year. Thank you. So with that, I'll pass the floor to our final speaker, Mr. Cunha, Administrator of Quezon City.
I will keep it short, and in my capacity as the co-chairperson of the organizing committee, I will try to read our short message in all three languages. Au nom de Maire Herman Bautista et le comité d'organisation et les gens de la ville de Quezon, nous sommes honorés pour votre présence au troisième forum mondial de mer. Nous espérons avoir répondu à vos attentes. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Quezon City, we are honored by your attendance to the third Global Mayoral Forum. We hope to have met your expectations. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po.
The third mayoral forum on mobility, migration, development is officially closed. Thank you all.
Thank you to all our speakers, and that concludes the third Global Mayoral Forum. We thank all the mayors, governors, local leaders, speakers, and other delegates for actively participating in this annual forum and contributing to the rich discussion and exchange of ideas and experiences. Later this evening, we will have our culminating activity for this year's Mayoral Forum, courtesy of our host, the local government of Quezon City. They have prepared a special dinner and cultural night at the QCX. So we will be ushering and transporting invited guests to designated buses right after the forum to get to the venue. Kindly assemble at the hotel lobby at exactly 5:30 p.m.